This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it or qualify it through a variety of methods, time, people, places, and things. But at its heart, at its core, the Auburn experience is all about a few things: Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff. And an easier way to say it is, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you so much for joining us and what we're going to be doing on episode 144 of the Auburn Experience podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle Loomis, ready to do another episode. And just hanging in there is Mr. Austin Scott. Welcome back, sir, to episode 144.
Thanks so much, War Eagle. Happy Monday afternoon for those of you watching live. Listening later on, this is a little bit later than you're used to, and that's on me. The change of the weather always gets me a little bit here and there, and I think that's where we're at right now. So got a lot to talk about, so we had to power through and get it done, and we're here.
Well, I was going to start the show off regardless of how are you feeling. I think regardless of whether it was weather or the past week, you were going to be worn down, maybe some melancholiness, and it's been a lot this week. On top of it, you getting sick, hasn't it?
Yeah, there's been a few things going on around here, right? There's been a couple noteworthy news events happening. Look, you throw in potty training for that in our house, and it's just been quite the week of things happening.
How are we doing on that front? I mean, I know that's
we're making solid progress, better than I anticipated. But the offense is working better than other offenses around the state. So
wow, he found a way to tie potty training in with Auburn football. I
really not that hard if you think about it.
Hey, that was something right there. Obviously, we got a show jam packed for you, so we're gonna have to do our best to stay on task here tonight with talk about Auburn and Texas A&M. We'll talk about the state of basketball, the retirement and the hiring of one pearl to another. And of course, we've got Auburn potpourri news. And while there's not really, I think, a lot of stuff that we need to take care of beforehand, other than trying to make sure we can keep you alert here during the show because you're struggling, I know. One of the things that when we go through time periods like this, Austin, talking about a big loss and a very embarrassing loss, more so about how we handled the loss or what the team did. But you always have the bad parts of the fan base that come out and say the most horrendous things, the most just awful things, the things that they would never say to a coach's face, to a player's face and stuff like that. But I think what I need to do a better job myself personally, but I call to action for everybody in general, is to elevate those voices that are a little bit more well-rounded. That doesn't mean to say that you can't be upset, that you can't be asking questions that are very valid questions when we get to the football segment. But I've felt the need over the last couple of days that we, once again, a call that we need to elevate those voices that are a little less emotional, a little bit more well-rounded, context-driven conversations. That's kind of where I'm sitting at with the state of the Auburn fan base, the psyche of it all. And that's kind of, I find myself in that place again, Austin.
It's an all too often place we seem to be in. The more that the internet and social media continues to, like you said, elevate certain individuals. In any circumstance, whether it be an Auburn football loss or something bigger, there's a way to handle yourself online, and we continue to see, one, that people can't do it very well, and two, that those that can't do it well seem to be the loudest voice in the room, sadly. So just continue to monitor that and continue to see, look for those who might be more level-headed, but also just handling themselves with a little more professionalism. They'll shine. They tend to shine through in the long run anyway.
Absolutely.
And there'll be plenty more opportunities for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you see like a lot of these commentaries about people calling others, creed thumpers and stuff. It's just an alternate form of Bible thumping and stuff like that. While there are people that utilize that, I think, too aggressively, I've seen it myself. I think it's important to remember that we are grounded in those principles as Auburn people. Whether you want to or not, you are subscribing to them because that's what Auburn people subscribe to. And it's important to make sure that you can't control what your team does. You can't control what others do, but you can control how you reflect the Auburn creed and how you model that for others. And that's just my call to action for everybody in this very difficult time. And what a week it was for Auburn football, basketball, other stuff out there. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into it. Auburn potpourri time. We do have some things that we want to touch on. Let's do the bad thing first, because it was like one of the cap ends of the week of everything that was just kind of piling up on Auburn people. A little bit of roster news for Auburn basketball. We'll get to the other stuff, but Simon Powell, who just came in as part of the current
Simon Walker.
Simon, what did I say? Simon?
Justin Powell, or you said Simon Powell. He looks like him, but
did Simon, I just combine Justin Powell and Simon Walker?
You know what though? I have never voiced it, but I think he looks like him, and so you just confirmed my thoughts that he does look like Justin Powell.
When is the last time we talked about Justin Powell?
I don't know if we did on the show. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not sure the show was around. Yeah, no, I have thought he looks like him. So, and I've never, you can back me up this. I've never voiced that to you. I've never voiced it to anyone because that's just a weird thing to think about.
That's just wild.
He does look like Justin Powell, and you just called him Simon Powell.
That is about years plus removed, and I somehow mix-match the two together.
That's like a weird telepathy thing, though.
That's a weird. That tells me I'm doing way too much of this. Simon Walker, unfortunately, has injured his right foot, which required surgery. Or a procedure. I don't know the exact terminology. And that went well, but he will be out for a good portion of the season, it sounds like. So whether we're talking about the week that was for Auburn, the news of the basketball program, it was just another thing kind of generating a lot of buzz and discussion about what is going on, like what's going on this week. I'm thankful though, Austin, that we're not losing him for the full year, but it sounds like it's going to be out for quite some time.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate especially for a guy who's really promising freshman coming in. We've heard everybody talk about these freshmen, how they are contributors that can be right away. And so it's unfortunate to see his kind of career start off a little bit slower due to injury, but good that they got it taken care of quickly, and hopefully he might be able to be back toward the end of the year.
Absolutely. We're going to hope that, because obviously with the big transition coming up, all hands on deck is probably going to be required, because you just never know, especially after last week, how things might change very, very quickly. You know how much I love talking about schedule news here. I think the two things that people who follow us a lot always expect out of me is to talk about construction updates and schedule updates, because I love looking. That's the one like future focus thing. I like getting excited about the matchups that are coming here. So we've got a couple things here we need to discuss. We now officially have a complete women's basketball schedule. It took about a week or so more. The men had already come out with theirs. But now with the non-conference being finalized for the women's basketball team, we now know the full picture. So we've already gone through the SEC schedule and talked about some of the good matchups there that you're going to want to pay attention to, and some interesting things like Florida being played twice by Auburn, not Alabama, make it make sense. But here is your schedule for non-conference to round out the schedule. At Charlotte, Alabama State for home, UNC, Greensboro at home, Mississippi Valley State, and Georgia State at home. Rutgers as well. There's a 5-game home stretch there. Then we go on the road to a neutral site, Frisco, Texas, UTSA, and California. We'll come back home for Oregon. That'll be a big, big matchup there. Yep. On the road for Syracuse. That's the ACC Challenge. ACC SEC Challenge. At Seton Hall, it's another prominent name in college basketball, both men and women. At Middle Tennessee State, and then back home for Alcorn State, Jackson State. So obviously I want to know what sticks out to you, but I will point out as well, there's a double header to end non-conference play for women's basketball with men's basketball, but also playing Jackson State. So I'm a big fan of that, Austin.
Oh yeah.
But what sticks out to you from the schedule? What are you interested in?
Really big names on there. The fact that Auburn gets to play Oregon, Seton Hall, Cal, Syracuse, all really big names in college basketball and women's basketball. So I think that's a tall task for Coach Vickers in his first year, but gets you up close and personal on some of the best to do it in the sport. So that'll be really fun to get to watch the team kind of progress as they head into conference play. And then you mentioned it at the end about the doubleheader. It's been a little bit since they did one of these doubleheaders, but they always tend to do really well.
Yep.
And now, now we have 2 first-year head coaches in both programs. So that'll be a lot of fun for people to get to see both programs at the same time, and have the opportunity to stick around and spend a whole day in Neville.
And look, it's not a given that both teams will win. You would hope that Jackson State's not going to be too much of a challenge for 2 different men's and women's power conference teams like Auburn men's and women's basketball. But I love this concept, Austin. I think some people that I've never had anybody who's has dissent towards this provide any type of take on that doesn't make sense. Like this is a great thing. It creates a little bit of that almost game day game day atmosphere if it also pairs well with some other things. Now this will be December 29th, right around the holidays. That's going to be a little bit tough to have a game day type of atmosphere with all that going on. But I love the concept of that. I love that Auburn women's basketball is going to be at Syracuse playing Oregon. Like you said, there's a lot to like here. There's a lot to like in the SEC play. So I hope that you all are gearing up, not just for men's basketball, but for women's basketball. A lot of good opportunities to come see an exciting first year for both teams. But Larry Vickers was first. So let's give him his credit. He was the first one to technically be named a head coach and arrived here. We'll watch their schedule very eagerly to see how they do. Keeping on that schedule news stuff, we do have some more information about softball news. Now, keep in mind, they are in action this fall. You can come and see them for some things on campus. One coming up very soon for that Georgia matchup as well. But we're looking more towards what people most think of softball spring, the actual season of it. They're putting more and more of the non-conference schedule together with the announcement that they are joining the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic. That is a long name, which should take place February 19th to the 22nd in Cathedral City, California. And it's the first time that Auburn's been there since 2020. There will be 6 games over a 4-day slate. And this makes it the second non-conference tournament that Auburn will be a part of, that being Auburn softball, alongside the one in Clearwater that we're always, I feel like it's basically it's a second home for Auburn softball at this point. Is there like a good contingency of fans down there or something? Like,
I don't know. I would say that there's always a lot of really good softball that's played, a lot of really good teams. Yeah. Clearwater, Florida, is a how do I put this? A good place to retire. And so I think that might be a lot of the contingent that ends up making their way to those games. And then, what are the dates on that Clearwater? Do you have it right there in front of you?
The Clearwater I don't have on my hand.
It's usually early.
Yes.
And so it's warmer than here during that time of year. So I don't know. Maybe that's the move.
We could all go snowbird.
There you go. Yeah.
Snowbird down there. All right. Well, here's who you're playing in this tournament out in California. So 2 opportunities for probably good weather. You've got obviously the 19th to the 22nd. Doubleheader on the 19th, Oregon, then UCLA. Friday playing BYU. Doubleheader on Saturday, Washington and Cal State Fullerton. Following up on Sunday with Cal. I mean,
loaded.
We're playing the entire state of California. Let's just be honest here.
It's ye old Pac-12.
Ye old Pac-12.
But it's those are some softball royalty names, with Oregon, Washington, Cal, some teams that have been to the top. So that's an early test, but a fun one.
Yeah, it's a good bunch of names people are aware of. Obviously, I'm not going to act like I'm familiar with how everybody is currently prolific or not in the softball space outside of Auburn. But, when you see names like that traveling out there, that should generate a lot of interest. So go ahead and mark that down. If you want to take a little bit of a February trip to California, for those of you that need a vacation, this would be a good thing to head out there. And Cathedral City, California, the 19th to the 22nd. Auburn's non-conference schedule is slowly coming in to shape here. Now, we don't usually address comments in the chat, but I want to talk about Sam's because I joked about me doing construction updates. I'll be honest with you, this whole construction of the patio thing outside the Student Center, I'm questioning why we started it in the middle of football season. Like, can
Yes.
we just talk about that
A
for a second?
solid point. I'm good with that. First off, though, Sam, you say we need it to finish. It did just start, so I'm gonna need a little more patience from you.
Sam
It
has no patience. I love Sam, but like
well,
as I've
it
gotten to know
just
Sam,
started, and now if we need it to finish because it's a pain during football season, I totally understand because it did start literally a week before. So I don't get that either, but I think that it's going to be a really
it's gonna
cool
be
thing.
great.
It's if you've been a student, which the time of me being a student there has become the gap is getting larger, but I would imagine the same issues persist. If you've been a student and eaten at that Chick-fil-A, there can never be enough seating to be able to eat there, and so I think you're going to need some more seating anyway. So I think it's a good change, and then I'm very interested to see that big screen out there that they're going to put. I think that that's kind of a cool difference in what could happen, but also add to the game day atmosphere as well of having big games out there and being able to watch as you walk by or park it. But I'm with you on if we're talking how much of a nuisance it is that we have lost an entire pathway in the busiest area of
And it
campus
was a
on Saturday.
bad bottleneck over there already.
Already, that's right. That's right.
Now that was because of a very tiny wall that was kind of oddly placed there, and people
It
would trip
caused some
over.
issues, but you could at least walk. Now there is no walking to be had.
No walking to be had. So listen, we know there are reasons for these types of, we mean this in jest. We know people are not, they knew football season was coming, and this was obviously the main time that made sense for everything. It doesn't make sense on the outside looking in, but since we had someone bring up the whole construction update thing, I have not talked Auburn construction
We'll
in
have some
about,
soon, I'm sure.
oh, I mean,
There's
you never,
plenty to talk about.
listen, it feels like every 2 to 3 weeks now we've got like just news breaking of like some big magnitude, aka this past week. So just give it like a week or two, and we'll probably be talking about they're going to build a brand new softball facility somewhere, or they're
Yeah.
tearing down Beard Eves or whatever. I don't know. It's
Oh my, the
I
day.
know. Don't even get started on that. All right, so there's Auburn potpourri. We'll leave it at that. Plenty more to discuss here. First major topic this evening. Wow, Texas A&M and Auburn. Look, it was bad. Can I just say that right out at the start? In terms of a overall view of it. Now, there are shining things within that darkness that we need to give credit to. However, what I don't want to be missed, because so many people will accuse you of being a sunshine pumper or stuff if you don't address, horrendous, atrocious. I think that is the phrase that Coach Hugh Freeze used as well, was atrocious. Inexcusable. Those were the words he used. Cannot happen again. And I agree. What we saw Saturday versus Texas A&M in a 16-10 loss, mind you, cannot happen again, especially offensively. It was embarrassing. It was ugly. And it's almost magnified. Part of you is like, okay, we got to buy a week so we got 2 weeks to figure this out. But then you got to sit in this disgustingness for 2 weeks. So I want us to acknowledge that you and I sometimes probably being accused of sunshine pumping and stuff like that, that we're not happy with this. And I know you share those same sentiments.
Yeah, nobody. I kept telling my friends and Emily that I'm just tired of watching offensive sluggishness. It feels like it's been close to a decade of offense being hard to watch just compete at Auburn, and an ineptitude to be able to move the ball up and down the field where it seems easier for others. And I think all those sentiments are completely fine and shared here, that it's not fun to watch and it's hard. There's things that I think you do a discredit to when you don't bring up the good parts.
Yep.
And I think that we all can agree that the defense is a very shining part of this Auburn team. And we've said that before. This sounds like it's being said over and over again because we've praised Auburn's defense in years where the offense has been poor for a number of years now. But I think you're doing a discredit to that side of the ball by only focusing on what we're all frustrated about with the offense.
Yeah, and I want everyone to hear that. We're not happy with what happened out there, but there's a difference between being not happy and talking about it constructively and then being destructive about it. And there, as we kind of open the show up, there's too much of that destructive stuff coming on there and this overly emotional response. And to me, as I continue to talk to a few people about, I think it shows that you've got football too big of a God in your life if you're reacting the way that you have about some of these things. But let's focus on the team. Austin, what happened? Like what it feels like the same story. Auburn's offensive line can't get it done. We've got quarterbacks running for their lives. We've got quarterbacks being or helping them create very bad habits and probably getting used to making decisions they don't need to be making, or not making the wrong decision because they feel like they're having to create something because literally they snap the ball and their hello is somebody. Not this game, Austin. It wasn't even in his face. It was behind him. The amount of times that I'm cringing because I see a guy coming around the edge and reaching that big old bear paw up there, or Aggie paw, whatever it is, to grab Jackson Arnold's arm and probably cause a fumble. It was way too many times. Is it as simple as that? I think it's the biggest part of it, but what do you think?
I think it's a big part of it too, but I think I don't want to self-promote and self-gloat here, but I think a lot of people on this that watch and listen to this show have been yelling Peyton Thorne for a long time, and Kyle and I have been pretty adamant that it is not just a quarterback, or at that time a Peyton Thorne issue. I think more are catching on to that, but there's a lot of issues on this team that have need to be fixed for a while. I think the offensive line's a big part of it. I think the quarterback decision making is a big part of it. I think some offensive coaching is a big part of it. But this is not a one-stop shop fix, and I think we all keep trying to convince ourselves that it might be. Well, if Jackson would just make a decision faster, well, I'm going to reason to believe that I don't think many of us have been in those shoes to make a decision faster than half a second. And then I think we can all say, well, why don't they just block or just bench him and put the next guy in there? I don't think a lot of those things are as easy said and done. So you mentioned the bye week, and I think Coach Freeze said it best. Everything about the offense has to be evaluated at this point because everything is not working. It's not just one thing. Everything is not working. And I think that there's a way to look at that and say, it's doom and gloom. And there's also a way to say, let's just start at the ground. Now, nobody wants to be starting at ground zero in week 5. I don't think that's what anybody would have liked to happen. But that's where you're at now. And I think that you've got to look at every cog of this offense and figure out how to make it work better than it is, because it's not working in its current state. I truly don't think that's any one position or one person's fault. But everybody's got to get on board and get on board fast on how to move forward in the new way.
Mm-hmm. Would you agree, and be honest here, that the offensive line was the biggest issue in this game? Or would
I think in this game? Yes, I think in this game.
Yeah.
I think in this game, they were the biggest issue. Yes.
So let me walk this out, and this can be applied outside of the offensive line too, because this gets into the fan response of it and stuff. And what I want people to really rationalize when they're offering these critiques, and the quickest thing and the easiest thing to say, and usually the wrong thing to say, is fire somebody, bench somebody. We have now gone through multiple sets of offensive linemen. There have been holdovers from each of those groups. Yes. So, but we've had different sets, different transfers in. In fact, let me point out that many of you would have screamed from the high heavens and called for the head coach's job had he not gotten Xavier Chaplin, had he not gotten Percy Lewis. Percy Lewis didn't work out. Xavier didn't have a great game. But trust me, you all would have been screaming from high heavens had they not picked him up, that they have failed, and you're this great recruiter. They'll throw that in his face. We have changed coaching assistant coaches across the offensive line, not necessarily in Hugh's time yet, but we have, since these problems began, changed assistant coaches. We have changed head coaches. We have changed schemes. We have changed offensive styles. We have changed everything that you can, and it still persists. Why? What is it?
I wish I could tell you, right? Like I don't know what it is anymore. And I think truthfully, I hope you hear me say this in a way of respect, but I'm not sure the staff knows right now.
Sure.
And I think that's why you hear him say everything has to be evaluated. during these next 2 weeks to try and figure it out. I don't believe, I've said this before, and I'm not sure everyone really believes it, but I don't believe they're going out there continuing to just try and do things because they think they won't work.
Sure.
I really believe that they are going out there trying to do certain things, call certain plays, block certain ways, make certain decisions, look at certain reads, because they believe that it's going to be the most successful. I don't think they're doing it on purpose to not be successful or to just be stubborn. However, it's not successful. And so now's the time to reevaluate while you can and try and build this thing back up. Like you said, we talked about on the show how much of a big pickup Xavier Chaplin was. He had a really bad game. He's had a really rough couple of games. The report during the game was that that he was a threat to be benched. And so I think that, these guys know better than us on what's at stake, and they know better than us on what they need to do to be better. It's on them now to figure that out and make sure it actually gets executed. But to answer your question, I truthfully have no idea on what needs to be fixed right away or how you turn it around quickly, because I think it's a myriad of things.
Yeah. And I think, frankly, and people don't want to hear this, you're just going to have to be patient. And because here's the thing, for those of you that want somebody to lose their job, someone to lose their position, that will happen if this continues. Trust me, your amount of screaming about it ain't going to change it. So you have to ask a question at some point. What of value am I adding to this? Like in what way am I contributing to the problem, to the dissent, to the issues outside of the team? And so I think it's time to start asking some of those questions. And I continue to go back to this. I am aware that offensive line problems started at the very end of the Gus Malzahn era. Never mind. I probably shouldn't go there. I'm going to leave that one right there. It didn't have to be this way. But I will continue to wonder what's going on with that offensive line. And look, we've addressed it. There's other issues as well. We've got phenom wide receivers dropping passes in their hands, easy passes. We've got,
it's an entire unit issue.
We got running backs missing. We got running backs that are 3 years now getting blown up and getting themselves thrown into the quarterback. Quarterback sometimes, not all the time, holding on to the ball and what is perceived to be too long. One thing I want to say on this, I found this hilarious because that you can kind of tell that certain segments of the fan base are getting their marching orders from certain areas, and then they go and regurgitate this. All fan bases do it. Like the whole thing with Oklahoma for the last 2 weeks was cry more, or that type of thing. You can tell they just got their marching orders to say this and 1,000 different things. The marching order this week was about, Jackson Arnold has got this. Look at this picture. He's got 4 guys wide open. But what they're ignoring is the offensive lineman that is, the defensive lineman that is literally pushing our offensive lineman back and has his hands over the top of Jackson Arnold. And okay, yeah, they're all 4 open. You make that throw. You try to survive that. But anyway, so I digress on that. It's just something I wanted to add there. Also, we gave a little bit of credit to the defense. 400 yards is not great, but to only give up 16 points, the dissent usually is then, well, they had a lot of penalties. Well, why do you think they had so many penalties? Because they were having a hard time competing with Auburn's defensive linebackers. Can we just give the man Xavier Atkins some kudos? Did you see that stat line, Austin?
It's an unbelievable stat line and the MVP of the game. And to what you said, that 400 yards plus yards is a high number and not something DJ Durkin or the Auburn defense is going to be impressed with. But to be on the field as much as they were, because in case you didn't know, Kyle, Auburn did not convert a third down on offense, so they were on the field quite a bit. It is still a crazy number to me and they continue to allow the Auburn offense to be in the game. But just another incredible job. And DJ Durkin continues to prove worth every penny. And this Auburn defense has been shown they have the players to do it. The Xavier Atkins, obviously the interception gets the most pub, and so I don't need to overpraise it. But my goodness, what a play! What a play at the best possible time.
Did you have a little bit of a panic moment there when he came down at the 2-yard line?
And
I thought back to, I think it was Big Cat Bryant who ran it back against, I think it was Oregon maybe, and then got stopped there and we only got a field goal out of it. Yes. I was like, oh, here we go again.
He stopped at the 2, and I think I even told my family or whoever was right next to me was that's 2 yards too short. He needed to go all the way.
I said, I'm not sure that we can get that touchdown, but hey, listen, Jackson Arnold powered that thing in there, so you got to give the man some credit making plays. I saw no amount of quit though from this team the entire time. They believed they had a shot, but boy, they didn't show that they had a shot. This game they were given every opportunity to do, and it is very much a ground zero moment of this program. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it is. This cannot happen again. This cannot appear this bad again, because that is grounds for really questioning some things. But at this point, I think Auburn fans are best served to just kind of not forget this one. You don't forget things like this, but to find ways to be constructive towards the rest of this year, because I hate to break it to you folks as we sit here currently. I don't hate to break it. I'd love to break it to you. You got a full season left. You got 2 losses against 2, at the time, a top 15 team, a top 10 team this week. Some of y'all are acting like we lost to the old Vanderbilt. Some of y'all are acting like we lost to Georgia State. Almost happened, but we didn't. Thanks, TJ.
You're right. At the end of the day, right now, Auburn's 2 losses are by a combined less than 20 points to number 5 and number 6 teams in the country.
Right.
And it doesn't make it feel any better. It's moral victories left and right. But we talked about all summer how those 2 games were a really rough start to Auburn's conference schedule on the road and against 2 teams that were going to be really strong. Then you throw in, the next one is Georgia after your bye week. Look, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying this as to provide some sort of just tap the brakes. There's a lot of people out there who did suggest that Auburn go 0-3 in SEC play and then figure out how to run the table. I'm not saying
that would be a 9-3 schedule or record, folks.
Which every one of you would take a month ago, or every one of you should take it right now. But I think that there's still a lot of hope to see what can happen out of this Auburn team. Now, granted, the rest of the SEC, as in every single sport on the face of the earth, is going to be really difficult, and you still have to go out there and win. But I think that this Auburn team has a chance this week to really reevaluate, like they've said, and to figure out what's going on, and figure out a way to how you come back strong against a very anticipated night game against Georgia that we learned today is any time between the 6 o'clock hour, and then finish out the rest of the year. Not looking like you have the past 2 weeks, but
absolutely,
it's not fun. There's still losses, but these are high quality opponents that Auburn's been playing.
We'll definitely dive into previews of UGA next week, but with 2 weeks off, I think we could all just use a little bit of a break time from that, which is great when you have a week filled of plenty of other things to talk about. So let's do that. Main topic 2, maybe 2.2 and 3, kind of, because I feel like we could talk endlessly about both of these things. In some ways, adds to the misery of the week. In other ways, I choose to view this as I want to call it a happy moment, but a satisfaction of we reached the end of something very special that went by way too fast. But I'm also very, very excited and hopeful for the future. So let's talk about the past and the current events of what brought on where I were reminiscing. Bruce Pearl officially retires in a little bit of a surprise for those that weren't paying attention to some clues out there. And I'm not talking about all of this. Somebody convinced you that he was running for Senate thing. That there were more clues than even some speculation about that on your local message board or social media platform. But Bruce Pearl officially stepped down last Monday. We're doing this on a Monday, actually. And so this has been a week out. We've had a week to process this, Austin. So maybe let's start there. I know we've got a lot of things we want to talk about with Bruce, but take yourself back to a week ago. What were you thinking? How have you processed it in the week since?
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't a super big of a shock that it actually happened. I think it was more of a shock to a lot of us that of when it happened. The fact that the team, or that we're this close to the season starting and it happening, is kind of one of those things. But I think the writing on the wall has been there for a lot of people too, on the timing of that we're in, and the aspirations Bruce has kind of shown that he is, and he talked about it in his video, so I'm not putting his words in my mouth, that he's figured out to kind of tone it back a little bit. He doesn't have quite the energy he wants to have to give it anymore. But 6 weeks till the season is certainly something none of us expected to get that news. So it was shocking in that way that it's something that you think that'll happen one day, but is it going to? When will it happen? Actually happened, and that's what I felt on Monday. And then we can talk about it in a minute. This is a side set of it, but I really hate that it came out nationally before the team was and Auburn was able to put it out.
Can I say something? Whoever you are that officially broke that or leaked it, I hope that you're stuck in traffic, but your AC won't come on, but the windows will open slightly just so you can be able to breathe. You can't get out of there, and you've got the worst stomach bug that ever happens, and there's nothing for you to just sit there in your own mess. I'm sorry if that's a little bit too graphic. I'm sorry, but for people like that ruin those moments just so you can be first, my gosh.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
It really stinks, and I don't really get the point of it, other than especially because your name is just sourced to everyone out there, like anyway, it doesn't matter. It happened.
You brought it up, so I had to say
it happened, but that's unfortunate part of it all to me. But I thought Auburn did a really good job of rebounding and pushing out that 15-minute video, which my gosh, they did in less than 24 hours. Is insane to me to figure out how you
did that.
Stephen Leonard, great job. But Auburn pushed it out finally once it was out there the way that they should have, and gave all the kudos and everything it needed to. But shocking in the sense that it actually happened, not real. Shocking that it did.
Yeah, where I was at, I was approaching this, getting asked about this a lot. Are you afraid Bruce Pearl's going to retire? I was like, no, because I know it's coming, and I know that he has laid an outstanding foundation for this program, and I kind of had a sense where we were heading. We'll get there. So it was more of I knew that within the next 1 to 4 years, it could happen at any moment. And I'm thankful that Bruce was honest enough with himself and his program and the fans to say, I cannot commit 100%.
That can't be easy.
That is someone who loves something more than himself, and that's the fans, the team, his family as well, to be honest and say, I need to focus elsewhere. But I'm not ready to leave Auburn. How great is that? That the dude literally had an option to go into politics. He acknowledged it. He's prayed about it. He's not going to do that currently. He wants to be a quote unquote senator of Auburn, an ambassador of Auburn, working in some type of administrative role, assistant to the AD, I think is officially what's been put out there.
Yeah.
I don't care. Just keep the man employed as long as we can. He is an outstanding ambassador and person who loves Auburn, the Auburn people, the right way. And I really, really, really love that we are getting to keep Bruce around for the time being as much as we can. And whenever, and I've said the same thing about Dylan Cardwell, whenever they are both done doing whatever it is they want to do outside of Auburn, you have failed if you do not find a way to give them some type of stipend, whatever salary, and keep them in some capacity serving this university, the athletics program, the Auburn family. They are some of the best that we have. They're not perfect. Don't hear me not saying that, but they are some of the best in representing Auburn and the Auburn family. So I think that's my main, just the general discussions about Bruce and the announcement. My sentiment is thankfulness and excitement about the future. I just don't find this whole panic and worry about what's going to happen to be that enticing to me. What's his legacy, Austin? What's his? Well, let me stop there.
Okay.
Let's be very clear, because this was asked a lot. Why did he retire? So if you'd like to answer that question based off what we heard from his own words, because I think some people are still confused about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that his own words where he couldn't give it what he felt was adequate enough anymore. And in this day and age of college athletics, it feels like you need more and more each year to essentially start over. He talked about how the calendar for him extended and we talked about it during the Final Four run. They're hosting transfer guys in for visits, talking with them, trying to recruit them. There is no off time anymore, even though that off time was already really short in the summertime or June, July. There is no off time for a coaching staff like this anymore that has to have their entire roster evaluated almost every day, especially in the off season. And so, I don't know how old Bruce is. He's older than Kyle and I. And so I would think that for a guy who's done it in a lot of different time periods of college basketball and college athletics, as he's gotten older, now he is at his oldest, that this is just too much. And I think that, for, like you said, for him to recognize and have the humility to say, I can't give Auburn what they deserve and what they need anymore. It's time for me to step aside is more than honorable and enough for me. Given what, and I'll lead into probably the legacy question here now, is what you mentioned a minute ago, is given what he has done at Auburn, I think he has every right to be able to say when his time is up and what he feels like is enough is enough.
And let me add on top of that, I think it takes a lot of self-awareness to look at this outside of, do I have it in me, but is this what's best for Auburn? For me to power through a year, or to go ahead and give somebody the fresh start that is probably going to set them off on a good, not the fresh start in the sense of a new roster, a new schedule, all these things. But when you have the groundwork laid that has been left, even if they had changed the staff a lot, it's really strong right now. And I do think I should say that was the best decision to be made for Auburn, outside of him just continuing with this contract. So I love that. The last piece here, and we need to talk about the future, Bruce Pearl's legacy. I think you and I had talked about this recently on a different episode where we were talking about the legacy of what he's done in terms of changing Auburn's perception with the NBA. And we can just point straight to Jabari, to Walker, to Jalen's getting still opportunities, Sharif's getting opportunities still, Chuma's still, and whether we talk about the NBA, overseas, professional basketball now knows that when Auburn comes up, because of Bruce Pearl, you pay attention. That's just one element of this. But it's a big question, Austin. I'll pose it to you. What is Bruce Pearl's legacy at Auburn?
Yeah, it's a huge question that I don't think anybody can adequately answer. But I think when I look at it from where I've been able to see it, Bruce told my incoming freshman Auburn class that he was a freshman at the same time. We came in at the same time together. My freshman year was Bruce's first season. And so that I've kind of watched it that closely from the very beginning. And to just lean all the way into everything that is at Auburn University, and to soak in the class, the students, and get them involved in a program that was literally atrocious, literally the bottom feeder of not the conference, the entire country, and get people to trust and believe in being a part of that. It's lasted, and it's carried in on the court, carried over off the court. He's made himself ingrained in the city, the university, and certainly in the athletic department. But I think his legacy is something that will be remembered, absolutely, for great teams and fun teams, but at a coaching style that was just energetic. But someone who, from the very beginning he got here, who had no prior affiliation with Auburn, was an ambassador, was a senator for Auburn University from the very beginning, and the very first time he stepped on campus. And now how great that is that he'll get to continue that while getting to spend time with family. It's so well-deserved. I'm certainly going to miss him being on the front seat and the first chair on the bench. But I'm very thankful that of what he's done for Auburn and Auburn basketball to restore them to some kind of prominence, and then some.
Yeah. Is it too much to say he's the Shug Jordan of Auburn basketball?
No, I mean, I think that's totally fair. I think you could even argue he's the Pat Dye of bringing Auburn basketball back into the forefront of a conversation that was left. They were left for dead.
I've struggled with this. How do we, listen, it's about basketball right here, but that's what people think too, comparing it with something of the legacies of men in football as the most prominent sport in college sports, and for Auburn. And I've wondered, is this did we just watch Shug Jordan, or did we watch Pat Dye? And I think it's a little bit of both. Or did we watch the Mike Donahue? I mean, because people need to put some respect on Mike Donahue's name. But either way, I think I think you and I we just watched the last 11 years, the greatest Auburn men's basketball coach of ever. Agreed?
Oh, absolutely agree. I think you have a real argument for taking men's basketball out of that too.
So just saying coach, period.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. I don't know that I'm ready to go there with
That's
you
fair.
yet.
We'll have
it's
a
not
great
bad
Mount
take.
Rushmore to go on with next summer.
Oh, listen, he is definitely going to be in a list of Mount Rushmores, whatever. And his story's not done yet. That's the thing about this. The story's not done yet. We'll talk about statues. We'll talk about naming of the court. Well done, by the way, Austin. If you saw what
Appreciate
Austin shared and we shared out as well. It was well done. Looks beautiful. We need it now. But
which, if I'm not mistaken, this is a side tangent for those
ahead.
that don't know. I made a little mock-up of Bruce Pearl Court. I feel like you would remember this. Did we not talk about at one time, and I couldn't find the article that alluded to, did we not talk about at one time that Bruce views the naming of a court as the highest honor you can get as a coach? I thought he referenced Pat Summitt, and that's what they did at Tennessee.
It sounds
and so
right.
past an arena, past a statue, his view of a court was the most high honor. Because I had a lot of people respond saying, no, like do the whole arena, do everything. And I feel like that was what his personal preference was. I could not find that quote, but I don't know why that's floating in the back of my head. That doesn't ring a bell with you though.
It does ring a bell. And I was thinking first to when people were joking, but also kind of serious about making the student gate the pearly gates. And then he addressed that and said, I have not earned
Maybe
that
it
yet,
was around that with Pearlville and everything. I think you're right. So I need to go back and look again, but I don't care what they do.
Give the man something.
The man needs to be given something. And I think it goes past the statue and things like that. So we'll see.
I've said it 1,000 places, but just to wrap up our legacy talk, I cannot put into words adequately what Bruce Pearl has meant to me as an Auburn content creator, as an Auburn basketball fan, and a member of the Auburn family. Folks don't realize this, but what you now see today, E2C Network, partly can be attributed to Bruce Pearl's arrival. Before that, I mean, we're kind of back to the basics of what we started with E2C Network, of doing a main show with a lot of everything in it because we found a way to make it work. But we tried to expand into the network side of things, which we still do. We started a basketball show, Clint and I, specifically because Bruce Pearl arrived and we were so excited. And it was the best decision we ever made for our business, but also for just Auburn coverage and stuff like that. For me, as just a student of the game of basketball, it has been such a joy. If you have regrets in this life, one of my biggest regrets is that I was not there during Bruce Pearl's time, because I would have been there to sign up for walk-on tryouts the day he joined, just so that I could be part of something like that. So I've said it 1,000 places. I'll say it again. Bruce Pearl, thank you. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you'll continue to do for the Auburn family. And you have left a legacy that may not be able to be matched, but how cool will it be if your son does it? Which takes us into our next segment and the final thing that we'll spend just a little bit of time talking about. You know, if you're going to follow somebody, maybe I think there's this old saying, you never want to be the guy that replaces the guy. I also heard it, you never want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaces the guy. And there's like analogies to certain NFL quarterbacks and things like that. Joe Montana, Steve Young, all that kind of stuff. I actually do subscribe to that. You don't want to be the guy that replaces the guy that replaces the guy. So I think we're fine. A lot of discussions about what might happen could have ensued this week once Bruce Pearl retired. But thank you to the brilliance of Stephen Leonard and his creative crew of creating the Auburn basketball cinematic universe and releasing a post-credit scene of beautiful, just cinema of Bruce standing up, walking away, turning around and saying, Stephen, and handing the basketball, pulling the chair out for him, passing the torch officially. It was awesome. And I obviously am very excited about this news. And I wanted to address some of the things that people may be concerned about with it as well. I think you're as excited as well, but what were your initial reactions to him being named Stephen Pearl, head coach of Auburn men's basketball?
Even less of a shock that Bruce retired. We've talked about it on this show before. I've thought this was how it's going to go for a long time. we've all known it's been very blatant that this is what Bruce wanted. This is what he had in mind. Now, obviously it wasn't only his call. It had to be okayed and approved by the athletic director and everything like that. It sounds like that was a pretty easy situation, easy process as well earlier this year. I just think that this, for me, and I think that we'll get into a little bit of what everyone's talking. For me, if this is what Bruce wanted, and I'm good with it. Regardless of he's earned the idea to be able to pick his successor, and if he thinks the best one is Steven, then I'm good with it. I do think Steven has earned this job. I think that you've seen that.
Can you say that again for the people in the back, please?
I do think Steven has earned this job. I think it's not. I don't believe it's nepotism. Because now I think it's great that a father gets to give something to his son that he did a lot of the work to grow. But I don't think it's nepotism to make his son work all throughout the department and the program to get to this point. All that said, I think Bruce has earned the right to give Steven the job he also has earned. And I think both of those things can be true. You might not want to believe that, but I think both of those things can be true. I think it's a really exciting time for Steven Pearl to be given the Auburn program and given the keys to add his own flair to it.
Yeah, let's address the calls of nepotism. I think it is one of the most simple, stupid, not well thought through to just claim this is nepotism. Now, I'm fine with the question because on the surface, it looks like it. Just a guy handing over to his son. Obviously, that wouldn't be the case if it was an assistant coach like John Shire at Duke who just took over and there was no connection. But it's essentially the same thing. They can't help that they're 100%. Related. But if you're claiming that it's just nepotism, that just shows me that you're trying to create headlines, create buzz, get people to read your articles.
It's too easy.
It's too easy. You haven't done your research.
No, it's comically too easy that's what you think. And look, that's if you want to go that route, that fine. You can make a fool of yourself and go that route. But I think that we have other examples. And I liked what I want to say it was Fran Fraschilla put out, one of the main college basketball play-by-play guys, is that 11 years ago, if Auburn fans are guaranteed, and I want to say this too, I don't think a lot of Auburn fans are the ones who are saying it's nepotism. No. I feel like it's more out there opposing fans, also opposing journalists, or not opposing, but journalists who probably have never watched an Auburn basketball game, but out there wanting to put their own spin on it. But I think Fran Fraschilla said if you told Auburn fans 12 years ago, hey, you're going to hire Bruce Pearl, you're going to go to 2 Final Fours, you're going to win a bunch of SEC tournaments and a bunch of SEC regular season championships and put in like 8 guys in the top 10 of the league.
And you're going to change SEC basketball forever.
100%.
Go ahead.
And SEC basketball gets elevated to the best conference in the country. And when Bruce is done, he's going to retire. He's going to stick around, and he's going to just promote his top assistant so this thing keeps going. Everybody in their right mind takes that. 100%. Now the fact that the top assistant is his last name somehow makes that invalid. I don't believe it. I think the people pumping that narrative are outside of what they actually believe or know what's going on, even though they're trying to convince you they do.
Yeah. So let's make the case then why this is the right choice for Auburn. And you can say maybe they should have waited a little bit and done a coaching search and still arrived at the same conclusion. And that's fine. But why even leave the question out there? If this is where we're 99% sure we're heading, even for just a chance that someone maybe has interest in the Auburn job, which probably a lot of people would these days, I can't stress this enough, and we can apply this to football too. Continuity, succession, it works. It matters. John Shire is the shining example of that. I'm aware that Duke has a brand name to it. Its name means a lot, and that helps them rebound in a sense. But you got to still be able to put the great players out. Here's the example on the other side. Tubby Smith. Yeah, he had some success at Kentucky, but he couldn't sustain it even with the name. So it's about, look, this is the right choice, I believe, for the reasons that we've kind of already touched on. It keeps everything the same. In his press conference, which an outstanding 1 hour watch and listen, if you have not done it, you are doing yourself a disservice. I thought one of the best opening press conferences of a new head coach that I have witnessed in some time. His statements were all about others for the majority of it. He had to be pressed to say, what are you going to do differently, or what makes you the right choice? His answers were the staff, this family, the support system. I'm here because of them, and I'm going to be successful because of this staff. So as of this moment, currently, all the team's still here. All the coaching staff is still here. People who have been waiting for promotions themselves, Ira Bowman. There were others as well that were given different titles and
Matt
stuff.
Gatens is going to be in the coach again. Yeah,
Matt Gatens is
Ian Borders. We already talked about had been elevated. I think he, I think like we talked about, dominoes have been falling.
Yeah.
But like you said, the continuity, and my favorite of his press conference was the question of how do you think this team's going to continue to be successful? And his point to the staff, and it's because these guys have been making it successful. We love Bruce Pearl. I love Bruce Pearl. I will never forget being able to watch Bruce Pearl coach Auburn basketball. But it was not just Bruce Pearl who created the offense that gets to Hod Pettiford open shots or brought guys in. It was the entire staff that is still here. And I think that Stephen acknowledging that and saying, of course, I'm going to add a little bit of my own flair to it and be my own person, but to keep this thing going, we're going to do it with the same people that have already been doing it.
Absolutely. And you cannot stress how important that is. If it's if there's a lot of other reasons to say yes, how that's going to keep this train rolling. We're not saying we're going to the Final Four this year. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying the level of competition that Auburn has raised the bar to for itself and the SEC, all signs look that they can match that. Defensive mindedness. This is what Bruce was known for. But he had been turning all of these roles over to the coaches, not necessarily because he was planning on leaving. He knew that day would come, and that's part of the reason he did it, but because he knew these guys, not just his son, needed opportunities to wet their whistle in certain aspects. So that's why the defenses has always been attributed to Stephen, which is going to mirror the former head coach and his father. You've got Mike Burgomaster, who's oftentimes referred to as the offensive coordinator here. And you've got the other aspect. Corey Williams has talked about being the guy that kind of keeps the glue of the team together and being a father figure. Every other aspect, and we don't have time to go through all the different things that Stephen talked about. But Bruce has imparted himself onto others, and I think that's the greatest sign of a coach, is how well they do that for the opportunities they give, but also how they pass pieces of themselves onto that. And that's Stephen here as well. So I think he's well positioned. I think his defensive mindedness is going to be pretty much the same, maybe with a even more intensity, just not as loud as Bruce was his time. Are we missing anything? I mean, this is just the first stages of us discussing this, but I want Auburn fans to walk away from here feeling that this was, as far as we can tell, the best decision.
Yeah, there's going to be people that you just can't be convinced until they see it, and that's fine.
Sure.
But I think too, you're also blinding yourself if you didn't see this coming. I don't, even a few weeks ago, we talked about Bruce had the interview where he mentioned some coaches that he could see replacing him. Obviously now we know that was kind of tongue in cheek. But I think that this has always been his desire and the plan. Now, after hearing John Cohen talking about it through the summer, this has always kind of been the plan. And I think if all those people who have a lot more skin in the game than we do are with it and alongside for it and think it's the best move for Auburn basketball, certainly they can be wrong. I don't see how they are in this instance. I'm really looking forward to seeing Stephen take up his own time as the first seat on the bench and seeing how many wins he can rack up.
Absolutely. It's going to be an exciting first year with a very challenging schedule. Not saying it's going to be easy, not saying that we're going to have, a Final Four year, but I walk away confident knowing that we have found ourselves the right coach at the right time with Bruce, but now Stephen. And I think it's going to be a very fun time that's going to continue for Auburn men's basketball fans everywhere. That's going to do it for episode 144 of the Auburn Experience podcast. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks to Austin for powering through his illness that took him out for Sunday night, but he got through this one. He needs to go rest now. So thank you, sir. And where can people find you?
Yeah, at Austin G. Scott on X on Instagram. We'll talk about next week. Got some news coming out this week, though. So could be fun. It's part of the reason we're doing this at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we'll talk soon, but that's where you can find me. Where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on X, if I'm kind of there, at Kyle Loomis 24, but follow the E2C Network stuff everywhere. And just as a quick programming note, we did not talk about the SEC schedule. We will do that next week because, as you can tell, there's too much to
a little bit going on.
Thank you so much for being here and being part of our little family within the Auburn family. And as we leave you, I want to remind you, the Auburn Creed asks you to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. War Eagle.
War Eagle.